Right, let's go.
Hello and welcome to episode 12 of the Just Discourse Podcast. You're listening to Matt Harpe and Max Smith. Remember to like and subscribe to allow us to keep doing this for you beautiful people. Hello mate, how you doing?
Very well, thank you, my friend. How are you?
I'm all good, long time no see.
I know, it's been a very long time. Nearly 3 days. Eh?
I know. How was your weekend?
Yeah, it was good, mate. Very busy. Nice one in London again.
Oh yeah, what'd you do?
Well, I went and saw a little gig.
Oh yeah, where was that?
O2 Islington.
Ooh, who was playing?
You were, my friend.
Oh yeah, I forgot.
You forgot about that. Was that the drink afterwards?
I think I had a grand total of like half a pint the whole day.
Yeah, that's enough for you, isn't it?
That is enough. Yeah, I was there to carry me back to the car.
But that was good fun, mate.
Yeah, well, thank you again, mate, for coming. It was fucking awesome.
That's all right. Well, you guys are doing well. You're smashing it, which is good to see.
And people seem to enjoy it, which is the important part.
Yeah, that's the main thing about it, isn't it? It's just enjoying it. But what about yourself?
Yeah, same. Gig on Saturday. Sunday, just recuperating. Worked out quite well with Father's Day.
Yeah.
Just kind of
good fun.
chilling out with that, really. And then cracking on since yesterday. We were speaking to the event organiser yesterday just about some of the footage that was done. And then moving forward in a few other ventures this week as well.
Nice. When's the next one?
Next public one is in a month. We've got two private ones between now and then. But the next one is the 22nd of July, which is the Hope and Anchor in Wokingham.
Beautiful.
Have a look, everyone.
Yeah, well, no, you guys are doing really well. You know, I've seen you start from humble beginnings.
Oh yeah.
And now, O2 Islington was not a bad little gig.
Yeah, I think you came to the fourth venue we ever played. You came to. Yeah, so we were absolute shite.
No, even back then you were good. It's just, getting your name out there and you guys just working together and stuff like that, isn't it?
Yeah, well, with everything is just reps and reps, really, isn't it?
Anyway, today we have to talk about the most polarizing conversation, shall we say, or topic that there is out there at the moment and probably has been for the past 2 years. Now, Mr. Andrew and Tristan Tate. Right, so the plot has thickened. So, of course, for the last, 18 months or so, there's been what they describe to be a matrix attack upon them, rightly or wrongly. Who knows? But today, obviously, we've had the news that they haven't been convicted, have they? They've been formally arrested.
Formally indicted is the word that has been used.
Indicted. So, of course, for the last, they were arrested in December, weren't they?
Mm-hmm.
They were both in jail for 3 months?
3 months in Romania, then on house arrest since then.
Mm-hmm.
And now I've been indicted now under human trafficking and the R word, which I can't say in the opening clip of YouTube, otherwise they won't let us play.
Exactly. But it's an interesting topic. I've spoken about it to a few people now, and as I said, it's very polarizing. You can speak to some people and they go into what's the word I'm looking for, the cognitive dissonance, where as soon as they hear the word they shut off and don't want to have a conversation about it, and they want to basically just squirm, which I could understand in part why people may have certain feelings. However, there's various things we need to talk about there, and this is the main thing I wanted to touch on with this whole thing that's been going on and I had a conversation with another friend over the weekend. Now, I'll start by saying I don't know the bloke. I've never met him. I don't really have any real opinion on him other than what I'm being told. And, throughout my short history, I've realised that a lot of the time what you hear is not even close to the truth. So, really, you've got to dig a little bit deeper and try and find information from various different sources to make a proper opinion on the matter. But I'll start by saying although he's of course being accused, or whatever the word is at the moment, going through the indictment process of what's actually going on, the 3 months in prison What are your thoughts on that? Already without charge.
The fact that he was put in for 3 months.
Yes.
It was in Romania. Was that common practice in Romania to do that?
That I don't know. I can only comment on, our judiciary system.
So if we base it upon ours, and that is extremely unusual, maybe even unlawful.
Well, it's definitely against some type of human rights, isn't it? Now, again,
Yes.
when we say this, we understand there are some very serious allegations against him. Well, I don't agree with anything that he may or may not have done, but in these arguments, it's the thing that we need to touch on the most is whether he has or hasn't done these. Everybody is innocent until proven guilty, and the main point is in that, as I said, I don't know Andrew Tate, don't really care about the bloke. If he has done these things, then they of course are horrific, and he should serve his time as everyone else should. However, we've got to be very careful when we go down these roads of allowing this to happen to someone in our society, unless we are prepared for it to happen to us at some point. For example, they've stopped his banking transactions and stuff like that. Various different freedom of movements and human rights that he has up until the point where he is actually proven guilty. Now, most of the evidence I see would strongly suggest that this probably is the case and he has done it wrong. However, we've got to remember, if this was you or I in a situation, that I'm not fighting this argument based on Andrew Tate. I'm fighting this argument based on the rights for humans to be free until proven guilty. Because if it were to happen to us one day, for whatever reason, we come up against a big lawyer or something like that who doesn't like us for no real reason, then if we're happy for it to happen to the Tates, we've got to be happy for it to happen to us, which means we don't really live in a free country anymore, do we?
Very true. The guillotine will come for all of us if you are going to abide by that.
And that's the point I'm trying to make.
With any person, polarizing person of any kind or repute, to truly understand someone like that's in the public eye, you have to listen to them personally.
Yes.
Whether it's a podcast, an interview, or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
If you form your opinion on them based entirely of what external parties tell you, that is not a true representation of them. So I first listened to him 3 or 4 years ago, before he became part of the cultural zeitgeist. He did these just ridiculously inflammatory clips, just about talking about how he expects 2 coffees in the morning and stuff like that, which one of the podcasts I listened to was taking the piss out of. They then had him on the show, and for the first hour he was that character, and just he was playing the Tate character of misogynistic, disrespectful, arrogant, bombastic. The second hour, and bear in mind I listened to this personally for 2 hours, listened to him. First hour, ridiculous. Second hour, he was incredibly insightful and compassionate and thoughtful and funny and inspiring, and he was just an incredible human. It was just, this is so interesting to actually listen to this, because he taps into the attention span of the algorithm for all of the social media platforms. He effectively is the reason why TikTok has done so well. He was the biggest account on TikTok until they kicked him off. 11.6 billion views. Christ. So he's bigger than that. The next one down is Ronaldo, which is 21 million or something. But he hacked the algorithm to realize to get the most attention. So to get the most attention, you need to be polarizing. If you and I just sat here and did nothing except agree with the status quo of COVID, transgender Andrew Tate, obviously not right now, but in a few years' time, no one will give a shit, because they're like, this is what everyone's saying. This is not mentally stimulating. This is just, being a sheep and repeating everything.
Watching the news.
Watching the news is repeating it back to you. Whereas actually, if you actually listen to the man they're talking about, yes, a lot of the shit he says is ridiculous, but you also have to understand it's a character.
Mm-hmm.
That's not to say that a man who can play a character so well is not capable of horrific crimes. He certainly is capable of them. But to your point, we don't know. He's innocent until proven guilty.
Exactly. And you touched on the point of most people's attention spans these days are so short that you can't even open up a conversation in regards to that. I was speaking to someone. Well, I must have said it to 3 or 4 people where I was watching the Patrick Bet-David interview with the Tates the other day, and all 3 people I mentioned. All 3 people I mentioned it to turn around immediately and were like, "Oh, why are you watching that?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm watching this because I need to get a broader spectrum of what's actually happening out there." Because he had the BBC interview recently, which there's the BBC version and there's the uncut version. And of course, if you watch the BBC version, it's all very. Bearing in mind the BBC is impartial, they are by definition and by their own mission statement impartial. It was the complete opposite of impartial. They went in with loaded questions and repeated the same questions 2 or 3 times in some cases, trying to get a different answer to the one he'd already answered, to the point where he would turn around and say, "I've already answered that question. Do you want to move on to the next one?" Whereas if you watch the BBC one, a lot of that is cut out. But if you watch the uncut one, it's very... And again, I want to use the word disrespectful. Not saying that we should necessarily respect Andrew, especially if he has done these horrific things. However, until he's proven guilty, we have to assume that he is innocent, and therefore he affords respect from anyone. And especially the BBC interview, the lady, I can't remember, and I don't actually really care who she is, who was doing the interview, was incredibly disrespectful, bearing in mind that she was like in his house, in his own home. Like, she wouldn't shake his hand or anything like that, which I don't necessarily think you should be forced to. However, it's a sign of respect, especially if someone's letting you into their home to do an interview, which, let's be honest, no one knows who this woman is, what her name is, or even really cares who she is. So he, no matter what people's opinion on him are, he has basically made her from that one interview.
Yeah, and it's for anyone who hasn't seen it, the ending of the uncut version is fantastic. Because to your points you made, Tate goes on to be, "You're coming here. He's saying, I'm not responding to you. You're coming here to burn me at the stake. I'm not doing that because you are legacy media. I'm not here. You have no right to say whatever to anything to me, to pass judgment on me in any case. Mm-hmm. If we're here to have a conversation, let's have a conversation. I've let you in my house. Let's do this. If you're here to put your finger at me, then I'm not playing this game. Mm-hmm. But let's have a conversation. Let's have a dialogue." And what does she do, Max?
But she basically just continues to push. No, she turns around basically and says, "No, I'm here to interview you. I'm not here to have a conversation. I don't need to answer any of your questions."
With the ending.
Oh, the ending. Oh, he sort of says, "Thank you very much for coming," and goes to shake her hand, and she pretty much just ignores him, doesn't she?
Well, because he's saying all this stuff. He's saying all the thing about let's have a conversation. She's just like, "Okay, we're done here," and just.
Oh yeah, she just cuts it short, doesn't she?
Cuts it off and just leaves, and you're just like, well, that's incredibly telling. That's indicative of the whole attitude towards him. Well, they don't want a dialogue. Yeah. They just want to pick someone and burn them at the stake as a heretic.
Exactly. And that's all that mainstream media is these days. Look, we've got a viewpoint. Where it's coming from, we don't know. I mean, we can theorise. But especially as the BBC, it might be different to ITV or other places like that who aren't advertised as impartial. But if you're going to be impartial, you've got to be impartial. You know what I mean? It's just incredible that they, and I'd use the word audacity, they have the audacity to go in there and act so arrogantly in a manner when he quite rightly mentions that the media, especially since COVID, I'd say a good 80% of people do not believe a word they say now. So it's kind of pointless, and to the point where they're all piggybacking off the back of certain stars and the Tates and all that type of stuff, just to get some screen time.
Yeah,
because no one's interested in them.
They may very well be impartial, but that doesn't mean they're this is the same. BBC is the same organisation. We have to remember that went along with the lie that there were weapons of mass destruction in Iraq.
Yeah,
and
they had the death count for COVID every day.
Again, a lie.
Exactly. Bearing in mind, what was it? 99.95% of people survived.
Yeah, globally.
COVID. So it's like, you got to be careful the way the rhetoric is pushed these days, especially by these large media organisations, because it's not. Well, if it's not impartial in the way they say it is, in a way, like a brainwash, isn't it? Like they're there to push a point and keep repeating it and repeating it and repeating it until you believe what they say. And you obviously know the famous Joseph Goebbels.
What, the Minister of Propaganda?
The Minister of Propaganda in Germany, and that was one of his main... I'm going to butcher it now, I can't remember the exact comment.
Let's go.
But he basically just said that you have to just keep repeating things until it becomes the truth. If you repeat it long enough, people will start believing it. You say it enough times, people will start believing, whether it's right or wrong. And you see that from the media these days. It's just so blatantly obvious. And I have conversations with some people who are completely oblivious of it. But then once you mention it to them, I call it planting the seed. You just plant a little seed, and you'd be amazed at how many people come back to me that are like, I thought you were absolutely nuts when you first mentioned that, but it's all I see now. I can't unsee it, and it's just everywhere.
There's a certain mental fragility that some people have where they can't even comprehend that is true, that they won't accept it as true, because if they would accept that's true, then that is incredibly terrifying for them, that the government and the organisations that are subjects of the powers that be don't have their best interests at heart, when up until this point they believe that they're like, okay, I live in a democracy, everyone gets a fair trial, if you've done well you'll be rewarded, if you've done bad you'll be punished, as opposed to, everyone's going to get punished.
Exactly.
But the trick is, if you're aware of it, then you actually are safer than being blind to it. For all that ignorance is bliss, you are better equipped to recognise what's going on and then to push back against it.
Yeah.
As opposed to just living in ignorance or burying your head in the sand.
Well, if you're aware of it, you have the capability to avoid it and to, as you say, see it coming at you to the point where you can move away or make better decisions. But if you're totally blind to it, we discussed it before. If you know the destination, you can see the steps that are being taken in order to get there. Whereas if you don't know the destination, everything seems random.
Which applies in regards to conspiracies. And no, not a conspiracy theory, but an actual verified conspiracies, which do exist.
Yep.
But also, that works on a personal level as well. If you've got a specific goal, you can get there, and you're more likely to attain it because there's a specific quantified goal, as opposed to just not having one, just being living ephemerally and things just happen at random.
Exactly, and that it can be flipped in various different ways. We like to use the positive mentality of it when we talk about our goals and moving forward and being the best person we can possibly be in order to achieve them. But there are also, people out there who want to negatively influence the world to achieve their goals. And I read recently, do you know who Anton LaVey is?
Can't say I do.
So Anton LaVey wrote, I can't remember exactly what it's called, but he was a Satanist.
Meaning?
He believed in Satan, the opposite of Jesus. Like what all the positivity that, the real churchgoers push, he would literally do the opposite.
So it's all negativity and
to the devil and all that type of stuff.
Nice.
And
nice.
You should rape, pillage, do all this type of shit.
Oh, okay.
To just be that type of person.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So he founded the Church of Satan and the religion of Satanism. So he wrote the Satanic Bible, Satanic Rituals, Satanic Witch, and the Devil's Notebook. and Satan Speaks, among various other books. But on his deathbed, he spoke to a close friend and said, like, his last dying words were, "What have I done?"
Speaks volumes.
Because, you know, he realised after whatever, I assume he didn't think it would go this far, but to the point where, like, everything is sort of going that way now, and it's just absolutely mental that it was got hold of. Even, you know, like Hollywood and all those places, like, a lot of them, and a lot of high-profile celebrities are Satanists.
So what does that mean? Because I hear this word said a lot, but I don't know what it means.
A Satanist. So it's, how do I describe it? It's, you know, you believe in hate. Let's try and get the exact definition.
Yeah, let's clarify something here.
Person who participates in deliberate the inversion of Christian rights. That makes the most sense. So,
deliberately doing the opposite of whatever they say.
The opposite of all the, you know, positive things.
So instead of love thy neighbour, hate thy neighbour. Instead of cover your neighbour's wife, don't cover your neighbour's wife. Cover your neighbour's wife.
And yeah, and it was the book pretty much says to literally do the complete opposite. So read whatever the Bible says and do the opposite.
Fascinating. So how does that make Hollywood people Satanists?
So they are. They were going to go down a rabbit hole.
Let's do it.
Well, it's a very big topic, and
come on,
you know, we'll have to
educate me.
Go through various different hoops to get there.
Go on.
But there is. So we touched on it previously with Max and Robbie in the podcast. Is that you know how a lot of celebrities have these alter egos. You got Beyonce, you got Eminem. You got Lil Wayne. You got
their stage names.
You think that at first, but when you start reading into it, you realise that they will often overtly say that they're channeling a different energy when they become this person. So you got Sasha Fierce, which is obviously Beyonce. You've got Tunchi, who is obviously Lil Wayne. And who was the other one we discussed? Eminem. You got Slim Shady. And a lot, innocently, you look at them and you think, oh, again, it's just a stage name, just someone's different.
No, see, I see where you're going, because I thought you meant as in Eminem, Marshall Mathers, Beyonce Knowles, but it's actually another layer to that, is where you're going the other way. Okay,
exactly.
Yeah, I'm with you.
And they didn't start off like that. It wasn't until they got quite famous that these alter egos came about, and effectively they, or supposedly, I've never met these people, I can only say what you see out there, they've, for the money and the power, they've sold their soul to the devil, which they
keep going.
They say that they channel the devil or satanic spirits or energies to attain these levels.
So those three people you've named have specifically said that they channel the devil or satanic energies.
Not specifically said they channel the devil, but through various different things that they say, you can connect the dots, because they don't overtly say it, because they're
So it's an implication as opposed to an inference.
Exactly.
Okay. So you could say when they're channeling when you're saying they're channeling the devil, you could say they're channeling a higher power. You could say they're channeling
energy. That's what they tend
energy.
to say. Yeah.
Okay. So you could equally say they're channeling Zeus.
Yep.
Okay.
Or God.
Or whatever. What makes you say it's the devil?
Well,
out of all the greater pantheons that there are.
Because let's take Lil Wayne for example. Now, I'm not gonna lie, I love Lil Wayne growing up. He's like one of my favourite musicians, but what does he talk about? Money and bitches. That's all he really cares about. Now that's the opposite, the complete inversion of what the Christianity teaches.
So is it a case that when they say they're channeling the devil, are they specifically channeling him as an entity or everything that the devil stands for?
I've never channeled anything ever, so I don't know whether it's a real thing.
So is it a case of like it's just the principles that they are going?
Yes,
okay, I think I'm starting to understand it more now.
Pushing for.
Okay, so they are going for money, power, fame, bitches, whatever.
Yeah.
That is what they want for a multitude of reasons. And those things happen to be the domain of the devil because they are the
of Satan.
Because they are the
inverse
of Christianity.
Rights.
They are the hedonistic stuff, the instant gratifications, the pleasures, I understand. Okay.
Which, if you see through media and social media these days, it's pushed everywhere. Instant gratification, all this shitty food. Be on your phone and watch a couple of videos. Be instantly gratified. Don't worry about your health and your wealth and the things that are actually going to bring you fulfillment in this life. It's got to work, eat shit food, get hammered at the weekend or throughout the week, and then start the cycle again. And you just stay in that little box over there, and whoever the powers that be will continue to run the world and control what you do on a day-to-day basis.
I heard something fascinating the other day. So the adverts we get on all social media, it'll be things like someone posts that stereotypical picture of someone with a hand on the wheel of a Veyron, and it's got their watch and their lady next to them, or it'll be the guy in the suit.
Andrew Tate.
Moving on. Or it'll be the guy in the suit with all the sunglasses, all the hair products, all those ridiculously artistic pictures of the laptop and the tablet and the phone and the watch and the Porsche key and the private jet and the beach and the sunrise and this thing and that. I listened to something where they were saying that all of that is pushed as what is the ideal life, that is the idealized life of a teenager.
Yeah.
So as a teenager, that is what you would think you would be, because you're in that weird point of where you're not a kid, but you're not an adult. So you're somewhere in that weird limbo space. So you want to have all of that freedom, but no responsibility. Because that idealized life, there's no responsibility to that, because it's just all this money and ultimate freedom. But it's so juvenile. It's so young. It's so immature. It's such an immature, idealized view of life. When that becomes hollow in a couple of years, you do that for 3 years, you're like, I'm bored of this. Yeah. But it's constant, and it is. I can see it starting to change slowly. But I'm like, as soon as someone said that, I thought that is so personal, so poignant how you notice that, because that is exactly right. It's what a child would think that being an adult is all about. It's all about me, hedonism, pleasure, instant gratification, all of this.
Again, the inversion.
Yeah,
it's a complete inversion of what we're taught, and this is what we discuss about quite a lot. Is, if you only care about yourself, and we do talk at nauseum about our own goals, but our own goals tend to include everybody around us. It's not just I want to make money for me to be happy with a big old pile of money, because that's a fucking waste of time. We want to be there so we can build generational wealth for our families and create great spaces for our communities, etc., etc. Whereas, as you said, that hedonism type thing, which is pushed massively, it's not productive for anyone, especially the younger generation, who are the ones that need to be coming into the workforce and pushing, effectively pushing the other generation out, because they're better in every way, which they should be, because they're the next generation. But when you were talking about that, it just popped into my head is, do you think that, I don't know the figures on this, but I assume them to be correct, because that's nice and easy. But you know how they, as you said about the idealist life that's pushed on social media and stuff like that, do you think it's because the teenage generation are probably the ones who, the highest age population that's going to be consuming that type of content?
That's a good theory. That would make sense.
Because, it's not going to be the younger kids that are always on Instagram and stuff like that. It's going to be the, 12 or even
12 to 19, yeah.
12 to 19s that have got the time to be sat there all day on it. They're probably going to be the ones who are most active on it. Blah, 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 blah.
I wonder, because I think that absolutely was indicative of Instagram, because I think everyone 23 and younger, they're not as much on Instagram anymore. They're more on TikTok.
Yeah.
So that's different now. That's now little videos as opposed to just the images of this thing. I think it's still definitely there, but I think that might be part of the slight change we're seeing in regards to the advertising, because that population they're aimed at, they're not on Instagram as much as they are on TikTok. So they are on using both, but TikTok they're just aimlessly scrolling.
In the scroll hole, as they say.
Yeah, that's a fascinating rabbit hole. It's so insidiously genius that they've created this algorithm that just makes you just scroll and scroll and scroll, and it's so effective that you just see all the rest of the platforms copy it.
Yeah, because it releases that dopamine hit, doesn't it? And it's exciting, and you get that instant gratification. But because of that, we are building a generation of people that can't hold any focus, can't hold a conversation, can't. We've got it with some of the younger people that I work with and have worked with in the past. Is as soon as there's like a quiet moment, or even when there isn't a quiet moment, phone's out and they're just sat there in front of it. Now, I've always been one of those people. If I'm at work, I'm not on my phone. Do you know what I mean? I'm at work to work. Unless there's something I need to get off of my phone, like I'm making a call or something like that, you don't look at your phone. You don't go on social media unless you're posting something that's relevant to your business or something like that. Then, or you're on a break or something like that. Like what are you actually on there for? But a lot of the younger generation, they're just endlessly on it at every opportunity. While they're sat on the bus, while they're walking anywhere, they go to the toilet, they get their phone out. Like it's very strange to see that, because again, you're slightly younger than I am, but I was on the cusp of, and I would still put you in that generation, but we were on the cusp of that, 90s kids, of the transition from being outside with your mates, cycling around, playing in the park, doing all that type of stuff, whereas these days it's sort of in front of the TV with an iPad and their phone.
Yeah, so you're 93, I'm 95.
Yeah, exactly. So we're not too dissimilar.
Yeah, mine was skateboarding. Yeah, just out every day until the sun went down, then come home.
Exactly. Yeah.
There's two things there. One, I think, is an age thing, because you and I are very different now than when we first met.
Yep.
First of all, we both had beards, glorious beards,
beautiful beards.
But something I noticed again on Saturday, you to not get super cute, you have a presence now that you didn't have when I first met you.
How do you mean?
You have an innate confidence. You're solid like a nice garden wall. There's a presence about you because you incredibly self-assured. Mm-hmm. Whereas when we first met, you came off like you had a lot to prove, or you felt like you had a lot to prove.
Right.
And there was kind of like a nervous energy, as it were. Obviously, I have no idea what it's like for you seeing me, because I can't see myself, but that's how I see for you. So I think there's an age thing. To your point about how when you're at work, you're here to work. Yeah, you're 29. You're fucking dialed in for the last 3 years. Mm-hmm. These kids, they're not even 20 yet, or they'll be 22 or whatever. And as we've discussed ad nauseum, prefrontal cortex doesn't lock in until we'll be 26, 25 if you're lucky.
And is it like I'm an older person now and I'm looking back at them thinking...
There's an element of that. Not that you're wrong, but there's an element of that. But there's also an anomaly as well there, I think. Again, coming back to our favourite topics, delayed gratification. There's a few employees I had in my last job who were 16, 17, 18. Probably, let's say, 10 of them. 5 or 6 of them fit the stereotype of just on the phone constantly, and you got to keep snapping at them to kick them back into work or whatever.
What are you doing,
but then the rest of them got cracked on with the job, and they were efficient and driven and curious and motivated and questioning. And then once they'd done that, they were on TikTok. I'm like, of course, go for it. And some of them had and have still very difficult lives. Like, this is not their only job. They've got like 2 or 3 and they're 19. And you're like, Jesus.
Yeah.
But I think with those there, they are incredibly grounded in reality. Probably more than they should be at that age. So I think that, fair enough. If you're going to go social media just scrolling, that's probably the only reprieve you get from your reality that you probably don't want to be in. Then, like, fair enough. It's good escapism. But I think the prevalence of the social media being effectively a game is like it's the pertinence of the Aldous Huxley quote. The cruelest thing you can do is give man too much leisure.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. You've got too much information coming at you, and it just zombifies you because your brain can't process it all. And also, it's not exactly enriching information either. It's stupid fucking dance videos, or you know, I'm gonna watch a guy sand a table. It's like, why is that value besides the fact that it's just enjoyable? It's like, yeah. So it's wanking into a sock, but it doesn't mean you should do it all the time.
Unless it has any real value to your life, like as you said, you're a carpenter or something like that, and you're learning from it. Like, is there any real point? And I think, say what we have said about our previous employer where we first met, there were a lot of young people there that were switched on. I think we're very fortunate that we have people around our age, between sort of 20 and 25, that were switched on. And I will openly say it's the only place I've ever been where, even throughout schooling, any of my lessons or anything like that, where I've been around a group of young people who pretty much are all switched on and ready to go. Do you know what I mean? There was no real lazy people that weren't interested in doing what they had to do to get the job done.
Well, I think that's part of that is to do with the environment, because they wouldn't drop like a sack of shit if any of them displayed anything even close to laziness.
True,
but it's brilliant to see, because I think 2 or 3 of them that are our age, that were there when we were, they're still there, and they're now area managers and on the cusp of directors and stuff. Like, that's fucking. They're not even and none of them are even 30 yet. That's fucking awesome.
And I'm glad you touched on the point about the fact you'd be dropped, because I think these days, in the push for, like, it's not inclusiveness, it's more like kindness, where employers are having to be less harsh on their employees. It's given most people a constant safe space / buffer where they don't really have to perform at their highest to get the job done, or even to keep their job. Whereas, as we know, you don't improve without pressure and pushing yourself to the limits. If you're never going to be pushed to the limits, then you're never going to improve. And if you can't improve, then you're never going to have any real fulfillment, are you? And I think, from your comment earlier about how maybe I've changed over the years, is probably just due to, I can't remember who it said this, but it was basically saying, through your experience you create competence, and through competence it creates confidence. And once you have had those experiences, because you can relate back to them in any given situation, it creates a competence, because you've got a track record of achieving things and being able to overcome issues in high pressure situations. You've then got that confidence when you go into things, then really nothing can faze me, because I've done these things before. Every situation I'm going to be in is going to be different, but there are going to be things that we can take from our past experiences that, as we said before, you can transfer onto this next experience that you're going to have, in order to give you that strong will that you're going to be able to push through and achieve, and you haven't got to worry about things. Whereas I see it with a lot of the younger generation is, and maybe I was like this, maybe we were like this, and we're just saying it from this, elevated, viewpoint from where we've experienced, but a lot of them don't get pushed enough in order to get out of their comfort zone, and in order to learn and grow as people. And then every opportunity, they're sat on their phone, losing focus in the mission and the goal, and their attention spans are so short that they can't even really push through and do what needs to be done.
It's one of the unexpected curses of bringing up a generation of people saying you can be anything.
Yeah.
Because now you're like, there's too much choice. You're paralyzed by choice. Because I don't know which one to go for because I could make the wrong decision.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's so much choice out there. I could choose something and it'd be the wrong one. You're like, shit, I'm not going to waste the time there. Whereas the advice you were given growing up, which you spoke about previously, was just do something, anything, whatever it is.
Positive, of course.
Yeah, but exactly. But yeah, it's like if you're like, oh, I don't know if I want to be in the police or the army or a carpenter or a painter or a football player. It's like just go to a fucking football game. You're like, and then you'll realize, oh shit, I fucking hate football. Okay, not sports. Okay, let's go over here.
Yeah.
And it will, by trying stuff, it will quickly narrow it down until you're like, okay, it's one of these three.
Yeah.
You know what? I'll do all of them. I like them.
And again, I suppose that goes back to the three things I just mentioned. Is through all the various different experiences you have, the more experience you have of different avenues or industries or, you know, anything really, you'll build up a certain level of competence in yourself through the action you've taken and the things you've done well and the things you haven't done well, to know that, right, I need to improve on that one, so I'll build on that one. I'm good at that one, so, you know, I'll use that as my strength to counteract the, you know, where I'm not so strong maybe, and then build that side of things up. And then you get to a point where you got the confidence where you're like, well, look, I can do whatever I want in more of a positive way, rather than thinking, oh, I can do whatever I want, I don't know what to do. It's more like, I can do whatever I want, so right, I'm going to choose, focus, and I'm going to go and do this.
I think there's something to be said for, it must be incredibly hard to have a sense of confidence or focus if you're having to create that from a later age. Because for people that, for example, there's the guy who has the biggest podcast on the planet. He, at a very early age, started martial arts to stop himself being bullied. So because
Who's that, Mr. Beast?
No, Mr. Rogan.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So he started martial arts. He started Taekwondo, and within like 4 years, he was then like national champion, which he held for the next 6 years. And as a result of that, he then went into comedy. He then went into like sitcoms and TV shows and films and stuff. He got all of those positions because he had no fear, and which is one factor. But the actual personal one is that when he was fighting, if you were bad at something, you fixated everything, all your attention on it until you were better at it or good at it. Because if you didn't, you would literally get your head kicked in.
Yeah.
So there was life or death consequences for not focusing on a weakness or something that you're not good at. Whereas, so he had that attitude for everything moving onwards. So if he's bad at anything, he just hones it obsessively until he's good at it. So because he treats it as if, oh, if I'm not good at this, I'm going to die. Whereas like for the rest of us, and I'm going to include myself in this, I don't have those same consequences. If there's something I'm bad at, I'm absolutely guilty of sometimes going, you know what, I'll leave that for now, I'll do something else. Exactly.
Yeah. And it's the worst thing you can do.
Yeah, as opposed to focusing entirely on it.
Grab the ball by the horns and just get on with it. And it's not... Maybe it comes down to the instant gratification society that we live in these days, is, you know, doing the hard things, you're not going to get the instant gratification because it's hard, it's not easy. You know, take a video game, let's say FIFA or whatever like that. You know, you play it on easy, yeah, it's easy to score loads of goals, but you're never going to get any better. But obviously when you move up the levels, I don't even play FIFA, so I don't know what the levels are. Easy, hard mode, medium mode, or whatever.
Let's pick Halo or COD, let's try that.
Yeah. Well, again, yeah, so I haven't played those for years either. But I can't remember the different levels. But again,
Halo's so good.
I would always go for the highest level I possibly could. And then if I really failed really fucking miserably, then I'll just go down one. Whereas I think most people start easy and then sometimes move up.
Well, starting easy is not necessarily a bad thing.
No, when you're at the beginning, you've got to learn the ropes.
But if you're always playing it on easy,
exactly. If you're never going to improve. Like life on easy mode will be extremely unfulfilling.
There was a thought I had years ago, whereas life is one of two equations. Pleasure now, pain later. Pain now, pleasure later.
Yeah.
And
it's powerful.
Which is
when you actually start implementing it.
But and again, it like it was a few years ago. I'm an imperfect being. It's hard to. I have to remind myself that sometimes. It's like it's one thing to intellectually know that, but to then live it with every decision, that's hard to do. And arguably, you shouldn't live in every single decision, because everything in moderation, including moderation.
Exactly.
Like being entirely abstinent from life is not living life. Like this. Granted, everyone watching is going to be like, these guys drink a lot of Monsters. It's like, I only drink Monster when I'm with Max, okay?
Yeah.
Calm down. Which means I don't see you as much as I want to.
Exactly. You want to see me 3 times a day, don't you? So you can have a Monster.
Keeps me awake.
But again, yeah. You know.
But yeah, I mean, it's one of those things with maybe a phrase like that. It's one of the things you need to write down on a big fucking series of post-its and just stick them up in the mirror in front of you. So then over time it'll just drill into your head, and it will just become a subconscious mantra that you'll just have.
But it's my point, when I talk about subconscious programming and having your goals, and 2, your repeating them over and over and over again to yourself, because it keeps them in your conscious mind, rather than listen to that dickhead that's like, oh, you can't do it, this is hard, you want to give up, blah 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 blah. If you push all that to the side and you just think, right, I've got to do this, how am I going to do this, and focus on doing what you need to do, rather than listening to the dickhead of, you can't do this, blah blah blah, you're going to constantly be pushing forward and putting yourselves in the situations that you need to be in order to come through and improve as a person. And if you don't, if you're afraid to put yourselves in those situations, then the world will tell you these days, oh, it's fine, go to a safe space, blah blah blah. But at the end of the day, you're just a pussy and you're never going to achieve anything. That's fine if that's what you want to do, but if you think you're going to be happy in 5, 10, 20 years, when you look at yourself back in the mirror, I guarantee you won't be. The person who's happy is the guy that's like, shit, I've gone through all of this hard ass motherfucking shit, and I'm here still smashing it. Look, I've done this and this, and this is where the experience, confidence comes from. Is if you don't force yourself to do the hard things, then you're never going to have any true fulfillment in life. I don't know whether that's just a male driven perspective or for where I come from, because obviously my opinion, which is an opinion of course, is that ladies lead completely different lives, biologically, physically, all that type of stuff. The greatest thing to do in this life is obviously bring life into the world. Of course, we can't do that, as we discussed before, so we have to search for other avenues in order to attain fulfillment.
Well, we still do, but obviously just not the physical process of it, but it's still the rearing of a being that is part of you, that is a child of your own, is absolutely, it's still part of our procreation.
And I think that's why we tend to push for the more like dangerous side of things, because we're happy to put ourselves in those situations in order to protect, can we say less vulnerable? More vulnerable, sorry.
Well, I mean, there's a variety of reasons. We put ourselves in dangerous positions if we don't have a mate, to get a mate, because then we're seeking and achieving status from that.
And biologically, no matter what anyone says, and we're speaking generally here, not each individual
of course
situation, because that's all we can really do when we speak generally. Is throughout history, women have had to seek the stronger, dominant men that are going to protect them in times of need, because of course they don't want other men, countries, whatever it is, to come in and because in history that's what happened. They would invade, kill your children, and then make you as what are they called? A
concubine?
A concubine, exactly.
Yeah, they take all the women. Yeah.
And of course they don't. I can imagine they don't really want that. I mean, I'm sure there's some women out there that don't mind being a concubine, but
well, as we referred to in the last episode, some women are into some weird shit, mate.
Exactly. Plenty of weird shit.
There was a point I had here somewhere. I was thinking.
Go for it.
I was thinking about what you were saying about if you're not willing to suffer some hardship to then have a long-term achieved goal which will give you fulfillment. Is there an argument that not everyone is built for that? Is there an argument that not everyone is built to work incredibly hard and suffer and sacrifice and become fulfilled at that point there?
Yes, there is. And again, probably another unpopular opinion because we're taught that, these days everybody's inclusive and blah, 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 blah. But to me, it's survival of the fittest. Charles Darwin, if you don't pull your socks up and get on with it and push forward and create wealth, which then creates protection, because we live in a different world to what they have for the last, say, 1500 years, is in this day and age we need to create the wealth to elevate ourselves into better areas to live, which are going to be safer for our family, which are going to give us more opportunity to provide healthy food, clean water, and again just general safety for ourselves and our families. So yeah, my point on that would be the survival of the fittest route is you've got to be the best, or at least push yourself to be the best person you can be in order to do whatever you need to do to provide for yourself and your family. And the men that don't do that are extremely unattractive to women. They end up, I guess, not mating and reproducing, and then their bloodline dies out.
Or they're the kind of men who are the same as male feminists, the ones who couldn't get women by conventional means of being attractive, funny, charming, successful, and become more insidious, try and insidiously slide their way in.
That's one thing you'll find about, although it's massively pushed to be a negative these days, one thing you'll find about more dominant men is they are more honest. They will tell you exactly what's going on, why it's happening, and why they're doing it.
Even if you don't like it.
Even if you don't like it, because we don't really... We care, but we don't... Not in a negative way. We care in a positive way, but through the required dominance, it's sort of like, well, I'll tell you what's going to happen. If you don't like it, that's cool, hit the road. Do you know what I mean? But I've got to do what I've got to do. Whereas the insidious males, they will, like most politicians, lie, cheat and steal in order to get what they want. And in the long run, it's not positive for anyone around them.
No, it's dangerous. And when there's a particular doctor or psychologist I listen to who's seen a lot of stuff like this, where those male feminists will end up becoming like they'll either become like stalker behaviour, or they will be friend zoned until one day they will have had enough, and then just decide because with no interaction with the female, just decide in their head, okay, it's my time now. And it's just like, because they in their head they put the work in, and it's like, okay, I'm now worthy of this woman, even though she has absolutely no idea of what's going on.
And they'll go and take it in all the wrong ways.
Yeah, well, yeah, or try to, which is very dangerous. Back to my previous question about, is it a case of not everyone is built to be like that, because the combination of instant gratification, distractions, blah 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 blah. the added advantage of that is that if anyone's weakness that exists and that they perpetuate that weakness, just makes whatever achievement we do that much bigger.
Exactly.
Because by our choices of trying to constantly improve ourselves, we're moving further up the ladder, and their choices of continuing to propagate their own weaknesses pushes them down the ladder. It'll naturally widen the gap between us there. So in a way, we should be very thankful for them.
Oh, of course. No, of course. We're not going to sit here and not say I was going to say not lucky to have this frame of mind. However, the frame of mind hasn't come back around overnight. It's come from a lot of shit situations and hardship, which we all have. I'm not going to sit here and act like my life's extremely difficult, but you have to go through a load of shit to really be able to decide that, right, I'm not fucking having this. Like, I'm going to be better. I'm going to be the best person I possibly can in order to really get the experience that I deserve out of this life. And again, you've got two options. You either, as you say, do the hard things in order to push yourself forward to really be able to grab hold and grasp what everything this life has for you, or you just sort of sit back and let life happen to you. And guarantee that is a piece of shit.
It is, but some people, unfortunately, will have that mentality to just be passive in they're passive observers of their own life through life experience or just personality. That's just the way it is. Even if they're unhappy, even though they don't like it, they're unhappy about it. Unfortunately, it's the case of people will stick to something that they know, they recognise it.
It's comfort, isn't it?
It's comfort, which is it's the most insidious form of comfort, because it's something that they actively dislike and it doesn't make them happy. But they would rather stick with something that they know that is detrimental to them, rather than something that the fear of something that they don't know, which could elevate their life to an order of magnitude they can't even comprehend.
Well, why do you think during COVID everybody just did exactly what they were told? Now, we live in this day and age a very fortunate position where all the media had to do and the governments were provide the comforts that we already have, 80% of your wage, coupled with immense fear, the death toll on the BBC every day, and everybody just sat down and was like, cool, I'm just going to take it. I've got the comfort, not going to lose my job. What's the point? I've got the extreme fear that, everyone's going to die. Well, obviously they didn't. I just sat there and took it.
In the beginning, I think everyone did it absolutely right. We did the absolutely right thing by listening to what they said. They did the right thing by saying, oh, this is incredibly dangerous, let's lock it all down. If that had stayed at 2 weeks, cool, great stuff.
Which is what it was told.
Which is what we were told
at the beginning.
Because then 2 weeks you can kind of work out what's going on. But then after that, it's entirely our fault from that point, because we accepted it.
Yeah.
Entirely our fault from that point onwards. And don't get me wrong, I was in a stupidly fortunate position where the lockdowns were, at the time, bizarrely quite enjoyable. Regardless of ramifications for other people with small businesses, or the ramifications that we're facing now, 3 years on, which doesn't feel real. That's 3 years.
It was
ago.
Comfort and instant gratification.
Instant gratification, yeah.
Is nobody, and the thing that frustrates me the most, the people that are moaning the most about the cost of living crisis, and this is the thing that annoys me, the cost of living crisis. It's not the cost of living crisis; it's the cost of COVID crisis, and nobody chooses to accept it. And the people that were the first people to be like, yeah, I'm just going to sit home and get paid all my money, or I'm going to go to work and have COVID 8 times during that year so I can get 10 days off each pop. they're the ones that are moaning the most about the cost of living crisis. Oh, my house price has gone up so much. Oh, fuel prices, food prices, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, well, it had to be paid for in some way. And how do you think they were going to do it?
Yeah, so if you take, let's say, 6 months' economy gone, that money's got to be added on somewhere.
Coupled with
war.
Massive fiscal stimulus, which again, as we've discussed, is a fancy term for literally creating money, printing out of thin air.
Coupled with corruption in pharmaceutical companies and energy companies.
Mm-hmm. Which will get cancelled for saying that.
Political sabotage.
Exactly. But that that's exactly what it was. And it's just crazy that nobody really sees it. But is that the short attention span of what we've been discussing in society these days? Is they haven't got the attention span and the confidence to really read and delve deep into what's actually going on, and then to put that knowledge into action.
It's the same thing with the Andrew Tate phenomenon, though. People will look at a news story and go, "Cool, that's my opinion made up."
Yeah,
because the opinion's already made up for me. I'm just told what to think.
I haven't got opinion. I just
repeat.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Read and repeat. That's it.
Which, granted, we are all guilty of to greater or lesser extents, because there is not enough time in the world to be fully informed of everything. You can only trust a certain small number of people who are specialised in whatever it is they're talking about. The problems arise when those people are compromised.
And that's where the information age was fantastic at the beginning, but it's turning into a shit show, whereas there is so much information being bombarded at you left, right and centre. People are working more hours because they've got to earn more money because of higher taxes, higher prices, everything like that, most people don't really have time to look and sit down and make real conscious decisions. They just have to forego that to somebody else and just trust their opinions and their decisions. And because of the extreme comfort we have these days, it's too easy to go, oh, you know what, don't worry about that, I'm just going to go and sit on the sofa and eat some takeaway and watch my shit TV and be entertained. And was it Julius Caesar that said, give them bread and circuses and they will never revolt? And
yeah, well, that's
you
why
see that happening.
That's why the Colosseum was built, because as the Roman Empire expanded, you contain the burgeoning population. You had to entertain them. Otherwise, they would have torn them apart.
There was one point where the Roman government had an idea at one point to put wristbands on all the slaves and the free people, and then of course they were sort of going through Parliament, and they thought, hang on, if the slaves realised that they outnumber us like 4-1, then we'll be seriously fucked. Whereas these days we don't even realise it, or they're so far removed from where we are in public. Back in the day, you could just walk straight into the Colosseum and stuff like that. Obviously they would have had guards and stuff like that, but these days, like, these gates, bloody armed guards, like all that type of stuff. Not saying you should go into the Houses of Parliament,
but all I can say is in the UK there are probably more people than armed security guards have bullets.
Yes.
So if a determined enough mob had the presence of mind to take someone out, that person's being taken out.
True.
But we are numbed from caring enough. I was having a chat with
most people our age don't care about politics, and I really wish I didn't have to care about politics, but you realise when it controls every aspect of your life, I'm sorry, but you're an absolute moron if you don't take some type of interest in it, because they're dictating to you what you can and can't do throughout your daily life. I wish I didn't have to. I don't want to. It doesn't really excite me. But you have a moral responsibility to yourself, your family, and the people around you. Like we mentioned about the Andrew Tate thing, like if you're going to allow governments to do that to a person, you've got to expect them to do it to you.
I was talking to Max Bryan boys the other day while I was with his folks, and so his mum and my mum grew up they're of a similar age. They grew up at the same time when they were our age, if not a bit younger, fighting for Labour, but they were like actually fighting. Like my mum nearly got kicked in the head by a riot horse, like that kind of
Jesus
stuff.
Christ.
And Max made the point, was like, there's nothing right now that I feel that strongly in. Now, whether that's because
of the comforts we have these days.
Whether it's because of the comfort or what I think is actually to actually truly know what the government is doing or what they're planning that we can then stand up against I think is way harder. Because in 35 years ago they would have said, oh, we want to do this, and then people would have been like, no, and they would have stood up for it and protested it. Whereas now the government's like, we're not going to say what we want to do. What we're going to do, we're going to create a 312-page document called the Clean Water Act. And for 291 of those pages can be our clean water. For the other remaining pages, it's going to be changes in taxes, expand the ULEZ zone. It's going to be, no extradition, or what they actually want to get pushed through is going to be these small little addendums that no one's going to read through 300 pages trying to find them. But they're just going to sneak them in there because it's going to be called something completely innocuous, like the Green Energy Bill. Nothing at all. It's going to have half of it to do with green energy. The rest of it's be like,
tax and control.
Or what was one of them? For an MP, you get paid $100,000 a year just for being an MP.
Right.
For just like travel expenses, and you're like, who has $100,000 a year of travel expenses?
Yeah.
And no receipts are provided, and that was passed like 12 years ago. But that's just like there was just a little footnote that just got pushed through some other bill. It was probably something to do with the weather.
And obviously, all of the MPs who are voting on this are going to push that, aren't they?
Yeah.
They're not going to disagree with it, are they?
Yeah, but that's what I think is the reason now, is because it's so hard to look at it. It's so hard to discern the truth. Like for example,
I'm sorry to interject, but because so many people are too busy looking at fucking what Andrew Tate's doing,
or Harry and Meghan, or Johnny Depp and Amber Heard, or Russia and Ukraine. Yeah,
to actually really see what's going on in front of them.
Yeah.
Rather than, at the end of the day, we'll have the conversation about Andrew Tate and the human rights and stuff like that, but he's irrelevant to my life. He's got nothing to do with me. I'm never going to meet him.
Yeah.
Well, I might meet him, but I hope not.
I'd be fascinated. It'd be fascinating to meet him as a person.
It'd be a good conversation.
Yeah, really interesting.
But what I mean is, I hope not, because I'll be in prison. Because he's like to go. But, it's irrelevant to my day-to-day life. So when we come back to the focus thing, there is no point having any type of real focus on that avenue, because it doesn't help me in my day-to-day goals or achievements. It's just a distraction from what I need to be doing, and that's exactly what those things are. The points you just mentioned, they're a distraction from the bits of politics that we should be interested in as members of society, because they're the things that are really going to affect us.
I think this is where you and I need to be cognizant that we walk that particular line. I never want to get to a point that we are entertainment. I hope people are finding this entertaining. But I never want to get to a point where this becomes distraction. I want this to be diverting so that people can listen to something while they're doing something else, as a way to educate and entertain as they're doing something. Like I'm always listening to podcasts, whether when I'm driving, when I'm painting, when I'm exercising, whatever, because it means I can physically grow and mentally grow constantly. But like probably 10% of it is distraction, pure entertainment. We want to make sure that, like, if you've got people that are specifically spending their time being like a political commentator, for example, their MO is to expose the corruption and the bullshit of politics. A certain percentage of that is them getting suckered into it, because again, then if someone spends a whole episode on Andrew Tate, that to your exact point, yes, it's interesting, but that's incredibly distracting.
Yeah.
That's incredibly irrelevant.
And then you're stuck in a downward spiral.
Yeah, because you can arm with this and that, and then
so.
In Satanism or whatever. Still, again, irrelevant. Interesting, but it's irrelevant. Yeah, it's a point for us to make sure we don't become like that.
Yeah, of course.
But purely by being aware of it, I don't think we will. But I think that's just to make sure that we want to always add value.
Yeah, and that's the main purpose for I think for us for doing this podcast is we want to add value and help people have an insight, or for some people who may never have had the fortunate experiences that we have had, to sort of step out their comfort zone and really understand that you can do whatever you want to do, but you just have to choose what you want to do. And that's the beauty of the free country, or the semi-free country we live in these days, is you can do whatever you want to do, and you've got the freedom to choose what you want to do. You've got to just find out what it is through trial and error, or if you've got an exact thing you want to do, write it down, crack on, and move forward with it. I think Matt and I were discussing this week that he's had a situation from our last podcast, or the podcast before. Do you want to tell him a bit about that, Matt?
Well, yeah, I was about to segue that in myself. I'm glad you said that, because when we're talking about talking about writing down your goals, it just helps to visualize what it was. I did that the other day. I wrote down like a big spider diagram. So I just wrote down in the middle, what is it I want, and then just went over everything. So I wanted freedom of time, something that was fulfilling, gaining value to other people. I get to work with people that I enjoy the company of, freedom of time, enjoyment, etc., etc. And the freakiest things started happening. It was really weird, because it's not the 3 or 4 things that are on the journey of the separate things I'm looking for. That's really vague, but I just kind of, I apologize for the vagueness, but that's just how it's got to be at the minute. Just appeared. I didn't do anything more. I didn't do anything less. So I still carried on the journey of my separate topics of interest, and things just sort of happened. One of them being the O2 gig.
Mm-hmm. And sorry, one of the secrets of this goal setting process is you don't want to tell anybody what it is, because positive people, you may want to have a conversation with them, but a lot of the time in this day and age, negativity and negative people can throw you off of your goals through their own energy spectrum. So you want to keep the majority of it to yourself, and allow the world, or the energies that be, whatever you want to call them, out there, God, we've discussed it before, there's various different interpretations of what it is that helps you get there. But you want to keep that as vague as possible in order for it to come to fruition quicker, because you want to be very specific with what it is you want, but not too specific, if that makes sense. And that might sound confusing, but you want to be very specific with what you want to achieve, but not so specific of how you're going to achieve it, because that can throw you off, because you'll try and think, well, I need to do this, 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 and that will get me there. Whereas you want to take it one step at a time. You want to write down your goals, work out what it is, and then let life throw whatever it throws at you, and then each step make a decision. Because if you're too busy thinking about the end goal all day long, you want to keep it in the back of your mind, but you then will become too emotional about what's in front of you, stressed, annoyed, angry, blah 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 blah, to confidently and competently take the steps that are in front of you.
Because what I found effective, I find it similar to writing a song, which certainly works for me, is just getting it out of my head, or coming up with an idea. By actually writing it down, it kind of cleared space in my head to then it wasn't a burgeoning thought. It was on this paper here, but it somehow made it more real. Just by having it physically in front of me, it made it more real. But it's so bizarre. Just by writing it down, several things along the paths that I'm walking just sort of happened. It was so bizarre. It's so strange how it just kind of happened from there. And I was just like, I felt like an idiot doing it, which you said would happen, and then you were like, shit's gonna happen. It's gonna feel weird, but it is gonna happen. And you were absolutely right, mate. Which I think where this works, compared to The Secret, which for anyone who doesn't know, The Secret is if you think hard enough about something, it's gonna happen. I think if you have the written down of what you want, and then you just turn up every single day along the road to achieving it, the universe will bring that end goal closer towards you, or give you an avenue towards it that you didn't even think was going to be there, which is what I've experienced, which is crazy.
So a bit of sort of expansion of what you said there. The Secret is a book, isn't it? It's about
book and a DVD,
the laws of the attraction, and they very vaguely and I think unfairly misrepresent what really the laws of attraction are, because that's what we're really discussing here. Is, you know, they basically say, like, you think about it and then you don't need to do anything, it will just happen to you. And it's like, no. You need to cognitively decide what it is you want and what you're going to do, and then you need to take the steps in front of you in order to achieve it. Now, the world will, as you said, and as you've experienced, they will present these situations to you, but if you sat there and did nothing about it, nothing's going to happen. But once you've decided what it is you want, the world, as we say, will have this weird way of conspiring with you, and it will literally present you all these opportunities that, because you know what it is you're looking for now, you can identify, well, I'm going to go that route, or I'm going to go that route. Now, every now and again, it will throw a curveball at you, and something will happen, and you'll be like, shit, I've done this wrong, or I shouldn't have done that, or blah, 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 blah. And then 10 decisions later, it'll slap you in the face and go, no, look, you had to have that shit experience in order to appreciate this one, to push you in that direction. And it's quite in depth, and, you know, difficult to physically put into words, but once you experience it, you know, it's completely legit.
Physically writing down and goal setting. Yeah,
and as we said before,
fascinating.
If for the people that are interested in this, Think and Grow Rich is the most important book you can read, because I would say that is literally a blueprint of what is required. And, you know, from my own experience, I went from being just a lazy
sack of shit
that, you know, didn't really have any goals or wanted to do anything. I literally read that book, and overnight it changed my perception of the world and what we can do to create our own realities in this matrix type situation we're in.
The good kind of matrix, not the bad kind of matrix.
Yeah. And, you know, we are all out here co-creating our realities. And going back to your point earlier, was if you have a positively strong will over the negative people that don't have a strong will, you're going to overcome them at every opportunity. Now, you know, there's a much higher population, I would probably say, of the lower negative vibrational human beings, but when they come up against people like us, the ones that, you know, positively want to positively act on the world and build and grow, they just get bowled over. I mean, again, there's a lot more of them, so we've got to be much stronger and fiercer in our will. But again, once you can find a few people around you that are in and looking for the same things, it doesn't even become, you know, an obstacle anymore. It's just a bulldozer.
Well, and if you surround yourself with the people who are better than you, they're going to make you better as well, or like-minded. You just got to smash your life together. And
that is the most important thing. You want to find people that have the same attitudes, values, not necessarily the same goals, but have the same vision of what you want from your life and what they want from their lives. And then together you can co-create each other's realities into, you know, a more positive space for yourself, them, your family, your community, everything like that.
Couldn't agree more, my man.
Seems like a good place to end.
I think that's been great. There we are. Well, thank you very much, everyone, for listening. Again, it's been episode 12 of the Just Discourse podcast. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Anyone's got any thoughts about or any comments about the episode we had today, chuck them down below. Until next time.
Take care.